Dennis and Casper with Submission Radio with a very special man here. No need to really introduce you, John. No, you're the special man. Yeah, you're the special man. No, we couldn't get anybody else. Everybody left, so we decided, hey, let's get. No. In all seriousness, John Morgan, first time doing a video with Submission Radio, which is pretty special to us. Obviously, we always hang around, having a few beers, have a few pizzas. This is a special moment. The other special thing about today is it's been an absolute crazy house down here at the early weigh-ins. I suppose you'd be used to this by now. The early weigh-ins have sort of become a breeding ground for news stories and what's been going on in the day. Let's kick it off here. Let's quickly get your thoughts on your reaction to what happened this morning. Did you expect, two fighters to miss weight? All this crazy stuff going on. Jacare coming out to make weight. No one letting the media know that this is going to happen. Then Cerrone comes out. He's doing a scrum. Tyron Woodley and Conor McGregor looking at each other funny. Did you expect it this morning?
I guess maybe you kind of have to expect it to a degree. I mean, expect the unexpected. It seems like we lose a fight damn near every time we do this, and it is kind of weird how these things are becoming a bit of a news creator early thing in the morning. It rarely goes smoothly, but I thought today was a little weird, especially, and certainly we can talk about the details, but I thought what was really confusing about it was I don't think the commission was being especially clear about all their policies. There was nobody to really talk to. As you said, media were kind of in the dark. We're asking questions, and we're like, listen, I'm not trying to be rude here, but that's my job. I'm trying to find out exactly what's going on. It didn't seem like anybody could answer, so a bizarre morning to say the least.
Were there any answers from the commission? Was there anything they told you that was sort of helpful, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the big one was the whole 5-pound weight issue, and that's what caused the Gastelum and the Cowboy Cerrone fight to be waived off. Kelvin Gastelum wasn't going to be able to get within 5 pounds, but then come to find out, that's not really in their bylaws. It's not in their bylaws. So I went to go talk to the commission because you had an interesting situation, one that we've never seen before, is that, Thiago Alves weighed in. He was heavy. He weighed in early. Jim Miller had to be within 5 pounds. So Jim Miller was already on weight, had to start rehydrating, get some fluids in him, some food in him, so he could move up enough that he would be within those 5 pounds that he would still get to have the fight. So for something like that to happen was bizarre. And so, I went to talk to the commission and I asked them, okay, so the Gastelum fight, you had to scratch that one because they weren't within 5 pounds. Is this 5 pounds? Is that how you do it for every fight? And the commissioner was just, I won't talk about that. We'll just talk about this one fight. I'm like, just give us an answer. Just tell us what's happening. And I think that's what made it more confusing and more a little bit bizarre and a little bit odd. But it's funny. I mean, people are kind of figuring this thing out. This early weigh-in process. So everybody's figuring it out as it goes because it is interesting. If you come in early and miss weight, back in the past, everybody was standing together, so you knew right away your opponent could see you right there, see what you weighed, and go, okay, I'll take the fight, or okay, no, I won't. Now you've got to track down that person in the hotel or the sauna or wherever they go. You've got to find that opponent, let them know, hey, here's what your opponent's going to weigh. Are you down with it? What do you want? Do you want to stop cutting? Maybe you don't want to keep cutting. So just kind of interesting to see how this thing has developed since it went in place earlier this year.
I think the interesting thing here is, from everything that you said, from everything that we've heard, if Kelvin Gastelum had contacted Cowboy Cerrone ahead of the fight and said, okay, I am at this weight, this is the rule, then there's a good possibility this fight would have still been on.
100%. I think if that would have happened, and that's why Cowboy's so hard. In fact, that's how I found out that Kelvin was going to miss weight, because Cowboy came from behind the curtain, and he had this just disgusted look on his face. He was shaking his head, and I looked at him, I'm like, is Kelvin going to miss? And he's like, yeah, he's going to miss. And so if he would have known. From what I gather, most people didn't know about the 5-pound allowance policy, whatever the policy is, didn't even know about it till this morning because, I think if they'd have known that, operations would have been a little bit clearer, like, hey, listen, if you're good to do, because you're absolutely right. Had it been the other way around, had Kelvin weighed in first, had he come in and been like, listen, the lowest I can get is 178, 179, but he weighed 178 or 179, then Cowboy could have done the exact same thing that Jim Miller did, and that was, rehydrate a little bit, get himself within 5 pounds and keep the fight.
It's an insane situation because you asked the other day on Media Day, Cowboy Cerrone, about Kelvin potentially missing weight and said, look, is it something you're concerned about? And Cowboy said, as Cowboy does, in a more colourful way, he doesn't care. He can be at heavyweight or whatever. He'll still take the fight. Now, here we are. The fight is completely off. What do you think about this Thiago Alves situation where a couple of days ago he was weighing in at 170. He's been talking about how he's had a year to get used to lightweight. He's been working with perfecting athletes, and now he comes in majorly overweight, about 7 pounds.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, you think when he first announced that he was going to lightweight, I think all of us were like, what? Like, you used to struggle to make welterweight, but he says I've been working on it. So to have all this time to do it, I know he's disappointed. I mean, of course, we don't know the details. Maybe something happened along the way that prevented it from happening. But yeah, I mean, you got to think I mean, I don't think you give him another chance at lightweight. He struggled to make welterweight in the past. So really disappointing there. Kind of bizarre. And, kudos to Jim Miller for just doing what he had to do and step up and still keep the fight.
We want to throw a couple of things past you now. A couple of things going on right now that will probably be settled in the next few hours. First of all, Tim Kennedy. We were just up in his hotel and we were talking to him. There's some rumors going around. He would really like to get this Kelvin Gastelum fight. Is there any chance, is there any way if Gastelum is around that weight, the UFC would let that fight come together? Because we've just released an interview. Kennedy wants it. He's ready to go. Apparently people are reaching out. People are trying to figure out what's going on. Do you think it could happen?
I don't think it could happen because I think they're too far apart. And it sounds like from the commission, they don't like to make these last-minute changes like that because they looked at some other possibilities. We heard some other names that were out there, other people that were in town that happened to be around that weight that didn't have everything done in time. So I don't think they'd let it happen, to be honest with you. And they weighed in. I think the discrepancy was too much. It's past that 5-pound limit. So I don't see that fight happening.
Because the problem with Jacare, from what we understand, is the medicals. All the medicals were in line. Even though he weighed in, a lot of people were confused. Why is he here? Why is he weighing in? Turns out the medicals is what failed him. Gastelum has the medicals ready. Do you think that could possibly push it through?
I don't think so. I just don't see that happening, to be honest. I mean, look, crazier things have happened, but I think right now, from what I understand, Gastelum was in pretty bad shape. It wasn't necessarily that he just quit. It was that people were saying, bro, you're done. Don't keep cutting. So I don't think it makes sense right now. Crazier things have happened. I don't see it necessarily happening. I think they want to get Tim Kennedy rebooked on the Toronto card, which makes a lot of sense. Toronto needs some help. This card doesn't need help. You could still pull off 3 more fights, and people go, whatever, man. We just don't watch Fight Pass tonight. We'll wait for the pay-per-view. So I don't think this card needs the help. I think honestly, the UFC would be better served just saying, listen, here's a couple bucks, Tim. We'll see you in Toronto in a couple weeks.
Another man on the card, obviously, Cowboy Cerrone's left without an opponent. Now, I've heard rumors, I've heard inklings that apparently this isn't final. There is a chance that he could end up on the fight fighting someone else. And here we go. Breaking news from Mr. Mike Bond, who's a superstar at MMA Junkie, and everybody needs to go follow him and listen to him. Cowboy Cerrone versus Matt Brown is apparently in the works for UFC 206 in Toronto.
Well,
so he is off the card. And if Mike didn't do that, then I guess we just talk about something and then the video would be old straight away. So he is a legend and we owe him a beer tonight. He's off the card.
Guys, how much? I think that Cowboy's going to fight Matt Brown. I don't know if I told you guys that. That's kind of what I think, and do that in Toronto. I think that would really help out a lot. Scoop. Yeah, that's what I see it happening.
Does it hurt the card? I mean, you said it's a strong card and that you didn't have a Cerrone on it anymore. I've always felt like Cerrone was always a big part of cards because it got things going, got fans excited, and from a click perspective and people checking things out, he's always one of the most interesting guys. Do you think it hurts this card at all? Does it take away from it being the best card of all time now? Are we just looking at a really, really good card?
No, it's still the best card of all time. It really is. I mean, it does take away. I mean, Cowboy Cerrone is a fan favorite. Who doesn't like watching a Cowboy Cerrone fight, right? So yeah, it takes away a little bit. But no, this card was so loaded, top to bottom. I mean, honestly, the 3 title fights just in itself, and then of course, Yoel Romero and Chris Weidman. I mean, that's a fantastic fight. So no, to me, I think this is still the greatest card of all time. It does take a little hit, but I honestly think that's better for the folks. I mean, folks in Toronto have been upset. The Canadian fans have been belly aching about how bad that card is, and it's still, it's still not. It still could use a little something, but that's not bad. I mean, that's stylistically, how fun is that fight? If they get the Kennedy fight on there as well, who knows, man? All of a sudden, that card starts looking a little bit better.
Casper, I want to quickly ask you something. We saw with the Conor McGregor weigh-in, there was a little bit of a tense moment between him and Tyron Woodley. Now, yesterday we were talking to the guys, and I sort of brought it, I was a little bit sneaky. I brought it back to Tyron Woodley. What do you think about this guy possibly wanting to take your belt? He goes, oh, no, he doesn't want to. Do you, Conor? Yes, I do. What do you think about that, Woodley? So, Casper, what did you think when you saw the guys sort of have a bit of a tense moment there at the weigh-ins? And then on Twitter, Conor McGregor is now writing back to Woodley saying he'll do nothing. He's a Twitter bitch. It looks like possibly in his mind, he's looking at a possible welterweight opportunity here. What did you make of the situation?
I appreciate you being sneaky at the press conference, and it's very clear that Tyron Woodley...
Sneaky all the time.
That's true. That's true. I can vouch for that. Tyron Woodley, he's the kind of guy, he doesn't really like to focus on anything else other than, the fight that's in front of him, whatever's in front of him, and obviously that's Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So he tried to sidestep your question very purposefully. Unfortunately, he was brought back, and now we've got the tweet. So it's very much in Tyron Woodley's front yard, in his backyard, everywhere. And for those who didn't see, which is probably most people, there was a bit of a moment at these early weigh-ins where Tyron Woodley and Conor McGregor essentially weighed in at the same time, and there was a moment where they both stood by the snack table with the waters and the fruit and everything else, and Conor McGregor kind of looked at Tyron Woodley and gave him a bit of a look. Tyron didn't really expect it. He didn't look like he was trying to do anything or showboat, but McGregor, being a smart guy that he is, looked like he was trying to feel him out. And also, there's media here, there's cameras here. He's already thinking ahead. He's 20 steps ahead, setting up potential next fight. We don't know what's going to happen with Alvarez. And I mean, if he does lose, I think in some ways it's hard to expect him to go to welterweight. But he's a smart guy in the sense that, look, a lot of people don't think he's going to go down to 145. But hey, maybe he can go fight Tyron Woodley at welterweight.
You said it. You talked about being smart and being ahead of game. That's what I think. I think, he sees the marketing opportunity. There's no problem with just planting that seed just in case. I don't think there's any real heat there. There's no reason for Conor and Tyron to not like each other. There's nothing there. But you're right. I think Conor just plans ahead and he's like, if I throw this out there, because people are going to say I'm crazy if I ask for 170. But if the 170 champ asks for me, well, I guess I just have to go up there and do it. So I think it's pretty interesting to see it play out.
I will say, I know Tyron Woodley, he is focused on this fight ahead, but I wish he would sort of go with it a little bit more. He's a great guy. He's a likable guy. We're speaking to a lot of people here, and they say the Tyron Woodley that you see these press conferences who gets booed, it's not the same guy that they see, backstage in interviews. He's one of the nicest, smartest guys. But I wish he wasn't so rigid, because he's essentially missing out on an opportunity, sending another tweet out, saying a couple of things to Conor McGregor. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to take his mind off the fight, but it could settle, a big possible payday. If you want GSP, if you want Nick Diaz, those are big paydays. Why not Conor McGregor? It doesn't matter if people don't think it's a legitimate matchup. If money is what you want, then that's what you're going to get.
He's like a pro wrestler who's been given the role of playing a good guy, but it's just not happening for him. You can just see the frustration. We were there on the Nick's show court where he was telling fans what to yell back at him when he was going to yell something at him.
What they were yelling at him. They were yelling something completely different.
I want to finish up with this, John, and then we'll let you go because you're a busy man, and everybody needs to check out the MMA Roadshow, which is one of the finest programs, of course, and a lot of stuff happening there. MMA Junkie, one of the finest, and we always love having you guys around. This fight goes down, McGregor, let's say, wins these 2 titles. Are you expecting him to drop a title? Are you expecting him to find a way to keep both titles? What's your take on the situation?
I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to find a way to keep him. And I had no problem with that, to be honest with you. I mean, he is a very active champion, and I have no problem with it. What I do have a problem with is I want to know what's happening. On November 13th, I want to know what's happening with the featherweight belt. Tell me, are you going to defend it? What's going on? Because you got a guy like Max Holloway who can't win the title, can't win the interim title because that one's locked up with Jose Aldo. You got a division of people, Frankie Edgar and Jeremy Stevens, huge fight. What are they fighting for? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know what it means. So I'm cool if he wants to keep that up. He thinks he can still make 145, and he hasn't missed it. So if he can make it, he wants to make it, cool. I just want to know what's next. Go defend it. If you want to hang on to it, go defend it. I'm cool that they let him play this thing out the way he did, do the fights with Nate Diaz, build to this moment. I'm cool with all that. But now it's time. Once this fight is over on Saturday night, we need to know what's happening with the 145-pound belt.
Let me ask you, John. Obviously, we're all in the dark here. We're all waiting for this big announcement. But do you think he does it on November 13th? Because in theory, yes, you're at a press conference, and yes, you've got the media there. It's a good time. But the other thing is, let's say he does win, and he's got both belts. Would that not take away from him being a dual division champion if he makes an announcement that he's going away for a few months or whatever? The headlines will be Conor McGregor goes away and not so much focusing on him being a dual champion. And theoretically, he could drop a tweet in a few days later, and that's just as good. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think Conor McGregor has realized that he doesn't need media. He creates media. Not only does he have the MacLife.com, but I mean, just putting something on Instagram. I mean, it's insane the amount of retweets and likes he gets for anything he posts. Just a picture of him chilling out, gets 400,000 likes or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. I think it would be. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get that big formal announcement or whatever it is on Saturday night. Maybe we get it on Sunday. Maybe we get it sometime next week. Maybe tries to bask in the glory a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that guy doesn't need us to be in a room to get headlines. He can be wherever he is in a gym, just saying he's walking away and thanks for the cheddar and look what happens. So yeah, I think you're onto something there.
Well, he is the man in blue, one of the finest in the business, and so happy to finally have you on the program. This needs to happen more often. Early on in the day, early weigh-ins, and this has already happened. Ceremonial weigh-ins coming up, no doubt about it. More news coming. So stay tuned to Submission Radio, our YouTube channel, all the latest videos, and make sure to check out these guys. They do an amazing job as well. We'll see you guys a bit later.